A sniper bullet travels at roughly 900 meters per second. It enters a skull, exits the other side, and the damage is done in under a millisecond. A precision-guided bomb? It levels a building, maybe a city block. The destruction is immediate, measurable, undeniable. But then there's this weapon. A well-crafted piece of news, a carefully worded headline, a beautifully shaped lie, wrapped in facts, delivered by someone in a very, very good suit. No blood, no rubble, no footage. Just a slow, invisible erosion of trust, of reality, of the way millions of people see the world. So, what if you decided to pull the trigger? What if you wanted to start your own news network from scratch? I'm going to walk you through every single step, the costs, the machines, the people, the money. And then, the part nobody ever talks about, where the money actually comes from. By the end of this video, I promise you, you will never look at your TV screen, your Instagram feed, or your phone the same way again. Let's build a news network. Okay, first things first, you need a home. And no, I don't mean a ring light and a webcam. I mean a real broadcast studio. We're talking 5,000 square feet, minimum. And not in some industrial suburb. You need to be in the room where it happens. London, New York, Washington, D.C., Dubai, Singapore. Prime real estate in those cities doesn't come cheap. You're looking at anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 a month in rent alone. But hey, you've got 4 walls. Great. Now what? The cameras. A professional broadcast camera, a Sony HDC or a Grass Valley, starts at around $20,000, without lenses. Good broadcast lenses? Another $10,000 to $30,000 per lens, and you need at least 4 or 5 of them, on robotic rigs, with backup units. Oh, and you'll need jibs, teleprompters, lighting rigs, the kind that heat a room to an uncomfortable 35 degrees and cost $5,000 per fixture. We're already past $300,000 just in camera and lighting hardware, and we haven't even touched the most expensive room in the building, the control room. This is the brain, the nerve center, the place where someone is deciding every single second of the day what you see. You need a production switcher. That's the device that cuts between cameras. A serious one costs $80,000 to $150,000. You need character generators. Those machines that put the lower thirds and breaking news banners on your screen. Another $30,000 to $60,000. A budget-friendly control room setup? $500,000. And I'm being optimistic. A serious one, the kind that lets you go live from 3 cities simultaneously, run graphics in real time, and manage a rolling 24-hour broadcast? You're in the millions. Plural. Now, I can already hear you. But wait, in 2026, can't you just stream everything through the cloud? IP-based broadcasting? SaaS production tools? And honestly, yes, cloud-based production has genuinely democratized the entry level. A scrappy startup can now stream live news on a fraction of what it cost a decade ago. That part is real. But here's what the cloud evangelists don't tell you. The moment your network becomes serious, the moment you're broadcasting to millions of people simultaneously, and a single second of downtime costs you credibility you can never get back, you stop trusting your existence to a shared server farm in Virginia. Major news networks still invest tens of millions in dedicated, hardened, physical infrastructure. Redundant fiber lines, on-premise playout servers with failover systems, private satellite uplinks that don't share bandwidth with anyone. Because in breaking news, latency is catastrophic and downtime is death. The cloud is a tool. For the big players, it supplements the fortress. It does not replace it. And we haven't hired a single human being yet. Here's something the slick on-screen anchor doesn't tell you. For every 1 person you see on camera, there are roughly 20 people you don't see. Directors, technical directors, audio engineers, graphics operators, producers, executive producers, segment producers, researchers, fact-checkers, legal, IT, security. A skeleton crew to run a 24/7 operation? You're looking at 100 people. Absolute minimum. Now, let's say you're modest. You pay an average salary of $50,000 a year. That's already $5 million a year in payroll, before taxes, before health insurance, before the guy who fixes the coffee machine. In the real world, experienced broadcast journalists, technical directors, and senior producers command $80,000 to $200,000 a year. So realistically, you're closer to $10 to $15 million annually just in salaries. But wait, we haven't talked about field journalism yet. Because here's the thing, if you're a real news network, you can't just cover press conferences from a comfortable studio. You need reporters in the crisis zones, in the conflict areas, in the middle of the story. Sending one reporter and a camera operator to a conflict zone, let's say somewhere in Eastern Europe or the Middle East, costs around $20,000 a week. You're covering flights, hotels, hostile environment insurance, which is absolutely mandatory and eye-wateringly expensive, body armor, encrypted communications, and the most overlooked cost of all, fixers. Fixers. Local contacts who know the territory, speak the language, navigate the checkpoints, and keep your journalist alive. A good fixer in a crisis zone charges $300 to $500 a day, and honestly, they're worth every penny. Cover 2 active stories simultaneously for a month? That's $160,000. Gone. And then, the invisible toll, the bandwidth bill. To get your signal from a war zone back to your studio, you need satellite uplinks or live-view cellular bonding units. The hardware alone costs $10,000 to $30,000 per unit. The monthly bandwidth contract? Another $5,000 to $20,000 per month per active deployment. Every minute of live TV costs money. Every frame. So where are we? Before we've run a single commercial, before we've published a single article, we're spending north of $20 to $30 million a year just to exist. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You're probably thinking, okay, but ads, right? Ads pay for all of this. Look, almost no major news network in the world profits primarily from advertising anymore. The audience that advertisers actually want, 18 to 49, disposable income, brand responsive, is not watching cable news. They haven't been for years. They're here, on their phones. And whatever ad dollars do trickle in, a major network might pull $400 to $600 million in a great year, while spending north of $1 billion to operate. That's not a business. That's a money furnace with a logo. So here's the question you should have been asking from the very beginning. Who is actually paying for this? Because let's be real, nobody signs multi-million-dollar checks out of the goodness of their heart. You know that word news anchors love to use? Impartial? Impartiality in news is the funniest joke in the world. Truly, I mean it. Because impartial means we have no agenda, we're just telling you what happened. And I want you to really think about that. A $500 million operation, funded by someone whose identity you often don't even know, telling you they have absolutely no agenda. Does that make any sense to you? News networks are not charities. They're not public services run by monks. They are expensive, sophisticated machines, and every expensive machine has an owner. And every owner has a reason. So, let's meet the puppet masters. Some of the world's biggest news operations are openly state-funded. The BBC, RT, CGTN, Al Jazeera, France 24, Deutsche Welle, Voice of America. Some of them wear it proudly. Some are more subtle about it. Here's the thing about a government-funded news network. It's not inherently evil. The BBC does incredible journalism. Deutsche Welle is genuinely excellent. But every state-funded outlet has what you might call red lines. Notice how CGTN, China's English language network, never, ever frames the Taiwan question as anything other than a domestic issue. Notice how RT, before it was banned across most of Europe, had a very specific vocabulary when it came to events in Ukraine. Not lies necessarily, just Framing, emphasis, word choice. A government doesn't need to write the script. They just need to own the room where the script gets written. And here's the 2026 update to that playbook. Governments have largely moved beyond just funding TV channels. They've learned to speak algorithm. State-linked operators now systematically seed content into recommendation engines. They run coordinated networks of accounts, some automated, some human, that artificially amplify specific narratives until the platform's algorithm reads them as organically popular and starts pushing them to millions of people who never sought them out. You didn't follow that account. You didn't search for that story. The algorithm just decided it was relevant to you, after a little help. The TV channel is the official voice. The algorithm operation is the whisper campaign. And the whisper reaches further than the broadcast ever did. Why would an incredibly wealthy person buy a news network that loses money? Think about that. Rupert Murdoch built Fox News into a cultural empire. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. Patrick Soon-Shiong owns the Los Angeles Times. Laurene Powell Jobs owns the Atlantic. These are not sentimental purchases. These are not hobbies. These people own other things, much bigger things. Oil companies, tech firms, real estate empires, defense contractors. And having a major media outlet means you have a hand on the thermostat of public opinion, which is extraordinarily useful when a government is about to regulate your industry, or investigate your business, or decide on a multi-billion-dollar contract. Now, and this is crucial, most of the time, the journalism is real. The reporters are talented. The stories are accurate. Because here's the elegant, devilish truth. 90% genuine, rigorous journalism is what earns the trust that makes the remaining 10% of influence so devastatingly effective. A good investigative journalist can dig into a corrupt local mayor. They can expose a police department. They can cover a pharmaceutical scandal. But if the story leads to a business partner of the owner, to a close friend of the board, suddenly they're getting reassigned. Suddenly, there's a new story that's more urgent. Suddenly, the angle shifts. Nobody shouts. Nobody makes threats. It's much more subtle than that. It's just gravity. Some stories fall naturally. Others get quietly buried. Buckle up, because now we're moving from the expensive, visible world of broadcast news into something far more shadowy. The ghost networks. You've seen them. Polished Instagram accounts with 200,000 followers, Telegram channels with crisp graphics and breaking news updated every hour, X accounts with sharp, confident takes and no traceable author, no registered company, no address, no faces, no journalists you can Google, just content. Some of these are just scrappy startups, hustlers with Canva subscriptions. But some of them are something else entirely. Foreign intelligence services. And I'm not pointing at any single country, because almost every major power does this to some degree. Have discovered that you don't need tanks to destabilize a society. You just need a media operation. Here's the playbook. You set up an account. You spend 6 months, a year, posting 90% totally accurate, well-sourced, useful news. You build an audience. You build trust. And then, slowly, carefully, almost imperceptibly, you start dripping in the 10%. Not outright lies. Those are too easy to fact-check and debunk. Framing. Stories about ethnic tension that emphasize division. Economic coverage that breeds hopelessness. Social stories designed to make people feel like their country is collapsing, that the other side is irredeemably evil, that nothing will ever change. You don't change minds overnight. You just exhaust people. You make them angry. You make them distrustful of everything, including the real journalists trying to do their jobs. And a society that doesn't trust anything is a society that's very easy to manipulate. Some media operations aren't even trying to change your mind. They're trying to find you. They publish deliberately provocative content, radical takes, extreme positions, content designed to trigger a reaction, Not because they care about the content, but because the reaction is the data. Who liked this? Who shared it? Who commented? Who sent it to a friend? Every interaction is a data point, and enough data points build a profile. A profile of an active dissident, a political organizer, a potential target. You think you're engaging with news. They think they've just identified you. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a documented tactic used by intelligence services and political operators around the world. So, here we are. You now know what it costs to build a news empire. You know who actually pays for it. You know what they want in return. And you know that some of the news you're consuming was engineered. Not to inform you, but to use you. I'm not going to tell you which channels to watch. I'm not going to give you a list of trusted sources because, frankly, that would make me exactly what I just spent 12 minutes warning you about. What I will leave you with is one question. One simple question I want you to ask yourself, every single time, before you hit share, before you let a headline make your blood boil, before you let a story harden your opinion about a group of people, a country, a leader, an idea. Whose pawn am I right now? And whose next move is this piece of news? That's it. That's the whole game. If you can hold on to that one question, you are more media literate than 95% of people on this planet. If this video made you see something differently, and I genuinely hope it did, hit subscribe. We go deep on the systems that shape the world every single week. And drop a comment below. What's the weirdest, most obvious piece of media bias you've ever noticed? The story that made you go, wait, something's off here. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.